Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Liz Frediati. I'm the Assistant Director for Special Events in Athletics. I'm going to be moderating tonight's Q&A. With us tonight, we have men's soccer head coach Pete Caringi and Director of Athletics Brian Barrio. Before I turn this over to the two of them for brief introductions, I just want everyone to know that we will be going through a number of questions that were submitted prior to the start of this event. If you're on with us live and you have any additional questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature, and we will get to as many of those as we can. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Coach Caringi, for some brief introduction.
Make sure you get off mute.
And Brian, hello?
You're unmuted now.
Am I all right? Thank you, Liz, and it's great to be on. I'm excited to spend some time with our alumni so they can hear the state of the soccer address along with Brian. Brian has done a tremendous job helping our soccer program in an unbelievable, unprecedented time. So I think it'll be an exciting time to be talking a little bit about our team, our program, just some soccer talk rather than pandemic talk. And now I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Pete. So, I've had a chance. I've been fortunate to meet several of our men's soccer alums, and those of you who've had a chance to talk to me, that Pete and I are off to a good connection. I think I've really enjoyed working with him. He's one of the people I most looked forward to working to when I came here, and obviously just a great soccer coach and a great leader of men. So I'm proud to be on staff with him. And, I think together we got a lot of good things ahead of us. And I'll just tell you as we start off, I know Pete wants to probably talk less about COVID because we've talked enough about that for the last couple of months. But I'll just start off by telling those of you, because I think, if you're an alum and you played for Pete and you know him, and just so you can hear this from me, I mean, he's done an incredible job handling a just wildly challenging time for a coach, and particularly for a soccer coach, with the timing. And finding out that over the summer the season kind of hung in the balance, and they found out so late that the competitive season was going to be delayed. And I just can't say enough about the way Pete and his staff have handled this. And I know we'll come out of it on the other side and be stronger for it. And I just appreciate everything he's done. So we look forward to, like I said, talking a lot about soccer and less about COVID. But I did want to get that in there and just say, I mean, it's a challenging time, and I'm glad to be with somebody like Pete during this time.
Thank you.
Okay, we will start off with you, Coach. Can you just kind of give us a brief overview about how your team is doing, how the players have adapted to the new COVID procedures, things of that nature?
Well, it has been a very difficult time, and the unfortunate thing is we want to talk to soccer, but the COVID is probably going to be more of the talk, because the players were real excited about this year's team, and the guys have reported. But unfortunately, a lot of the things that we normally do, we can't do, and that's understandable. But we brought everybody on campus, or just started training last week. We had a good week of training. Some players are still held out a little bit, but collectively, I think it's a really great group of players and a lot of young players. I'm excited about the future of the program. For the guys who've been around for years, understand it kind of goes into cycles. And this is a really, really good group of young players. And they're eager, they're hungry, and it's exciting. It's going to be an exciting time to watch UMBC as these kids grow. Today, as we're sitting here, we had a good training day today, but not all of them could be there, obviously. So that it's very difficult at times to try to get what we want to get accomplished, but we understand it's just unprecedented times. I think the school across the board, the administration is doing a really good job of trying to keep a handle on this. Everything we do has pandemic written on it, and because it's unprecedented, almost daily something's happening that, of course, we're not used to. Whether it's training up on the game field, which obviously guys would know, the alumni that we normally wouldn't do. But it's just good to get guys away from other teams, and it's just really a precaution. But it's a nice precaution when you can practice on the field, but collectively, it's a really good group. They're training hard. The training's been hard. The alumni would understand that part. We're almost like we're in a long preseason mode to try to get this group together. So we're excited about them. And yeah, but pandemic is written all over it for sure.
And Coach, you mentioned you guys recently started practicing. Can you tell us how the practice regimen has changed at all? What kind of creative things you guys are doing during practices right now?
Well, I think some of the most creative things ever involved with soccer is happening out there now. And it's not really us being creative. It's basically being told you go through phases, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And we're just getting out of stage 1 tomorrow. And, stage 1, some of these guys on this call will be probably laughing because we're really not allowed to pass the ball. So it was a lot of dribbling. It was a lot of fitness. It was a lot of core work. We finally getting into shooting. So there's things that you normally would do in a soccer practice. It's just second nature that we haven't done. So it's a big adjustment for me across the board. Even trying to congratulating guys when they're doing well, slapping on the back. You just can't touch players. Guys that would know that we're really big on, especially early in the year. Team building is very big for me. From the first day they start, we're trying to build a team so that by the end of the year, it's championship caliber. And we know there's going to be no season. So we're extending that fall out further than ever. Hopefully something happens in the spring. So everything we're talking about now has an ending in the spring, but it's very difficult to bond and have any kind of team gatherings because you're not allowed to touch one another. So anything, even something as minor as getting in the huddle at the end, which everybody's ever played at UMBC knows that's a big thing for us. We're just throwing our hands out, but everything's an adjustment. The guys are learning how to adjust. I'm learning how to adjust to hollering on the field with a mask on. I have 2 great assistants, 3 actually. Phil Saunders is our goalkeeper assistant, but Anthony Adams, longtime assistant, and obviously my son Pete Caringi III. They do a great job of helping prepare for what we're going to do every day, and it's and they're always reminding me that the importance of the mask and the no touch rule, because it's just second nature to be out there to just be patting guys on the back. So I think everything we've done so far has been a definite adjustment.
Great, thank you. And Brian, Pete kind of talked a little bit about looking towards the spring. Can you talk about how things look moving forward, looking into the winter and the spring seasons?
Yeah, and I want to touch on one thing that Pete said, which was really, really good, which is that he's looking at this fall as kind of an extended training camp, and I think that's an analogy that I used with all of our student athletes when I met with them last month across all our sports. That really probably anybody who's listening to this is probably a soccer alum and played, and you can only imagine. I mean, you probably can't help but put yourself in the shoes of these student athletes this year and how they feel, and with the restrictions they have in terms of their dorm life and their off-campus life, and then the restrictions they have on practice. It's human nature to put yourself in their shoes and think about how it feels. And one of the things we've said to them is, view this like training camp. And just like Pete said with his teams, we said it to all of our teams. This is a 2-month, get us to Thanksgiving, focus on your sport, focus on your school. And when we get to Thanksgiving and everybody goes home from campus for a couple of months, our hope is and our expectation is that things will be better when we come back. This thing is going to be all about, from an athletic standpoint, who uses this time productively, who gets better during this time instead of feeling sorry for themselves. That's been our focus. And I know Pete's mindset on that. And, our hope is that all of our student athletes across all of our sports take that on and use this time to challenge themselves and get better. Because, the alternative is not going to do anybody any good. In terms of what the spring and the winter look like, the campus is going to run classes from now through Thanksgiving. Like I said, after Thanksgiving, campus is going to be pretty quiet and pretty isolated. And the hope is that that's a period of time when we can really kind of have good control over what goes on campus and sort of reset. At that point, when our students come back for spring, the hope is that we'll be able to, the big variable, well, there's 2 big variables. One is obviously what happens with the virus and the numbers. And 2 is what happens with the NCAA championships. Right now, it looks like the NCAA championships for the fall sports are very likely to go off in the spring. If that happens, we want to prioritize giving our student athletes a chance to compete for those championship bids, because at the end of the day, as a soccer athlete or any other athlete at UMBC, the prize at the end of the rainbow is that ability to play in the NCAA tournament. So if that's happening, we want to give our athletes a chance to do that. What that looks like, I'm not entirely sure. I would imagine running a full-scale America East, schedule in the spring alongside all of our spring sports running full and our other fall sports is going to be a real challenge for any school in our conference. So I don't know that that's what it's going to look like, but I think there's going to be a schedule and there's going to be a tournament and there's going to be a champion. And, to me, if I'm an athlete, that's probably at this point the best I'm hoping for, and all I'm asking for is a chance to compete for for a trophy in the spring, and we're hoping to give them that.
Thank you. Coach, post-pandemic, what are your thoughts on the proposed split season, which includes hosting the championships in the spring?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to hear Brian talk about possibly playing in the spring because, I think all our players, our alumni, we're all looking forward to that. If it happens, we want to be part of that, and we hopefully want to be part of the tournament. But the split season, it's different. I understand why college soccer wants to try to do the split season. Right now, I think we're probably, us and the women's soccer are probably two of the only sports in the NCAA that really have very limited time as far as coming in and preparing. I'm sure all the guys on this call, alumni, understand normally you come in, you start in mid-August, and within 2 weeks you have your first game. And a lot of times there's a lot of games bunched in a short period of time. The recovery period is not the best. Missing class time. I think there's a lot of reasons why the soccer coaches are trying to get the split season. From an administrator standpoint, I also understand them. As Brian said, there's only limited facilities. You'll basically be adding two more. If the women did it, you'd have two sports adding to a spring season. The facilities would take its toll. The staffing of the games and the amount of people that would involve. So there are pros and cons of both sides. But from a pure soccer standpoint, I understand it, why the coaches are advocating it. But for this year, I think it's really important to just have the guys for their own mental health. It's not really as much for the coaches as it is for the players, because they came in. Brian and his staff did a tremendous job of continuing to keep us informed throughout the summer. We were at one point thinking we were going to just come in and play. It reminds me a lot of this college football. 1 week it's on, 1 week it's off, and now the Big Ten's back on with football. But for us, it really was about just trying to keep the players informed and communicating with the guys. And we, fortunately, at America East, almost weekly, we had meetings with coaches. Probably the best communication the coaches ever got along and communicated, and all had the same interest. And I think the main interest was the safety of the players. I didn't see anyone and just was out there saying, look, we have to play regardless. And I think at a certain point, we all realized that we probably weren't going to play. But I think it's very important that if the NCAA is going to have a spring a tournament and some kind of soccer, that we be part of it. We're a national program now, and Brian understands that. He's part of us, and he's excited about it. We're excited about it. But we'll see. Where's the pandemic at that point? Is something America East is going to be involved in as a conference? But yeah, I think the split season has its benefits from a soccer standpoint, but also understand administrators, athletic directors, why they would have hesitation and want to do it. So from strictly from a soccer coach's standpoint, I'm sure we would all be in favor of it, and I understand their standpoint. So eventually, right now, it's got to be put on hold because of the pandemic. And even having said that, I'm sure there's a lot of things have changed, even from a financial standpoint, with a lot of schools all over the country. So things were really going well before the pandemic, and there was some momentum for this. And right now, it's probably not as much momentum because a lot of programs are just trying to get by financially and just trying to keep all their programs intact rather than talking about adding something else. So that's an administrator's, that's their opinions and how the decisions are going to come down. But for me, I'll be supportive of whatever we feel like we need to do.
Yeah, I touched on the current year spring options, and not really so much on the really interesting and I think thoughtful proposal for a split season moving forward in soccer. And Pete nailed it. I mean, I think the pandemic has kind of reshuffled the deck a little bit financially for everybody, and in a lot of ways, everything in the collegiate model right now is being looked at on the athletic side. So, I don't think it's remotely dead. But I do think we're gonna have to wait until the dust settles to figure out what this all looks like moving forward. So Pete's exactly right on that. It's a really interesting proposal, and like I said, I think it's a thoughtful proposal from the standpoint there's arguments to be made about student athlete health and the quality of play, the timing of the championship, the academic side of things, just to Pete's point, the preparation time for the season. So all of those things go into it, and then I think what's changed, I think, in the last few years. This proposal, I sort of bubbled up from the Pac-12 because I started to hear this probably 6 or 7 years ago from folks in the Pac-12, and I think what drove or what was the impetus for it is, and we'll all appreciate this as folks on the UMBC side of things, but as the Power 5 schools have gotten more sport-specific facilities and more staffing, for them it really makes sense because if you're if you're a Big Ten school and you've got a dedicated soccer facility, then certainly there's really much less of a limitation on playing all year. If you've got a dedicated athletic trainer for your program that doesn't do other sports, sports information that don't do other sports, a facility that you don't share with anybody, then that all makes it a lot more attractive. So I think to square that circle, we've got to all figure out what it looks like on campuses like ours where staff is shared across 2 different sports, and typically all of you will remember this. You probably had an athletic trainer that worked with you in the fall and then maybe worked with baseball or softball in the spring. So we got to figure out how that all works, and until the dust settles from COVID, we're not gonna none of it's going to be very clear. But it is a good it's a good thoughtful proposal, and we'll I'm sure it'll be looked at really thoroughly.
Thank you both. Coach, what can you tell us about the incoming class? How have they reacted to what would have been their first collegiate season being postponed?
Well, I think if I can't tell you how excited I am, and kudos to both our assistant coaches, Anthony and Pete. We brought in a great class. I think it's one of our best classes we've had in a long time. I think national publications haven't come out because of the pandemic with real top 10 recruiting classes, but if they did, this class of ours definitely should be in there. So I'm really excited. It's a really young group of players from last year too. It's not a lot of seniors. There's only 2 seniors on the team. This is a group that I think not only this fall will help them, but playing somewhat in the spring is going to have this group eventually it spells championships. And as a coach, you normally don't say that, but it's just that kind of group that has that kind of talent, but they're very young and they just need to grow and they need to be accustomed to playing with one another. But as a UMBC soccer fan, it's going to be an exciting time because it's a really good blend of a lot of local players with high recognition and some players from overseas. But our normal base of recruiting has not changed. It's always been the local area, and we brought some really good ones in. So, I don't want to put too much expectations on them, but I think by the time they graduate, there should be some rings on their fingers. And that's not something that I normally say, but I just think that it's that good of a group of players that's only going to get better. Now, how has their life been? It's been very tough, in all honesty, because for some of them, 3 guys came in from overseas. 3 of our returning players stayed back home, understandable because of the pandemic. So hopefully they're going to come in in the spring. But the 3 new players from overseas have come in and they had to be quarantined because coming over from overseas, and they're back in quarantine now because of things that is possibly going around school. So our freshmen have had a rough go. They've worked hard when they're on the field. They got a great attitude, great in academics, but it's just having to get over this early stage of the pandemic and going by the guidelines and rules, and it's very difficult. And as a young player, you come in and you leave and you go from home and you're on a college campus, And normally it's let's stick together. As I said earlier, everything is about tightness, togetherness. Team chemistry has always been important from UMBC soccer and for me. And our goal was to win a championship from day one. So they understand that when they sign up to come to UMBC. And yet we're all spaced out. They can't really be together. They're not told that they can hang out together. So it's been a really, really big adjustment. I think from the adversity, it's only going to make our group stronger, and it's going to make our team bonding even better, because I don't think there's any group in my time in soccer, and I've been around a long time as freshmen, that ever had to go through adversity as they are because of the pandemic. No other reason. And I think they understand it. I think they're doing the best job they can do it with it. And for us as even coaches, we're really every day we're trying to be very supportive of them and their mental health, because when you want to be out on the field, you want to be practicing, you don't want to be told that you can't be socializing, but that's basically where we are. So social distancing is a big topic of events, and no partying and no social, and that's been really put on them, and they understand it. And to their credit, they're doing it.
It's a remarkable dual challenge to watch from the inside. For the student athletes, Pete did a great job describing. I mean, their lives are pretty Spartan right now. They're stuck in dorms or stuck in off-campus houses. They can't socialize outside their small cohort of fellow athletes. And they're not able to train full time or go to school in person. So they're going through this really critical adjustment period without a lot of the tools that you may have had when you were in school, or that I did when I was in school. So it's a challenge for the student athletes, and the challenge I see for all of our coaches, and Pete alluded to it a little bit, is this is a championship program with a championship culture, and now you're being asked to build and inculcate that culture without being able to do all the things that you normally do and get together in person and train the way you want to train. And that's a real challenge for coaches, and it's going to be it's going to be interesting to continue to see how we learn from it and find ways to impart that culture without some of the tools that we normally have. And like I said, it's a real challenge, and it's fascinating to see it play out.
One other point, Liz.
Go ahead.
One other point. A lot of these kids, these freshmen, if you just look back to June, they're also were the same kids that really couldn't graduate and really have a graduation. So they went through a lot, and they're at the end of their senior year in high school, and now they're going through a lot in the beginning of their first year in college. So psychologically, it is really tough on you. And I think anyone on this call that's played the game and looked forward to graduating and having a summer and coming in as a freshman, and that excitement, I can tell them, and it's very different. So you have to feel sorry in a way for these kids, but you also have to continue to support them and make sure they understand that eventually it's all going to pay off, and we're 100% supportive of pushing them through.
I don't know if I'm stepping on one of the later questions, so if I am, I apologize, Liz. But Pete, can you talk a little bit about how you've used technology and Zoom and virtual meetings to work on team culture and do stuff over the summer?
Yeah, I mean, I probably talked to the players more this summer than ever. One, because I was home and stuck, and two, there was a lot more communication with Zoom and the technology of just trying to even get your team chemistry together. Trying to just have one night we had like a little contest. Anthony organized it. We got on one of these and just had like a trivia contest, and just trying to get players to know one another. I was very big this summer with trying to get. I like to meet with the captains and the leaders. So there was 3-4 weeks where we had a meeting weekly and went over the captains and leadership and what's the expectation, because we had some new guys that are going to be captains, and anyone's ever been a captain at UMBC understands how important that is to me and understands how important that is to our program. So when we brought the guys in during the summer, it was just to talk about being prepared and what they should be expecting, things that we probably would have normally in a conversation in the office. Now we can't do that. So there was a lot more. Almost everything we've ever done even up to study halls now, and even up to individual meetings. Everything's done through one of these Zooms, and it's totally different than anything anybody on this call has ever went through, myself included, and yourself. So it's a different world, and we all live that every day. But through this soccer, there are some good benefits of just continuing to participate with the Zoom and making sure everyone understands that we're on the same page, making sure that we're supportive of one another, making sure that when this is over, we'll all be better for it if we stick together and we continue to have our goals. And tough times make tough people, and I'm really looking forward to the day in the spring where we can all put our hands together and get back to playing and trying to win a championship.
Thank you. That was actually our next question. So moving on to you, Brian. Will there be more men's soccer games televised on ESPN platforms in the future?
I know that's been a goal, and it continues to be a goal. I mean, if you think about it, I don't know how many folks who end up listening to this are going to be alums from the last 10 years versus alums from my generation or older. But it's the expectation now is that folks are able to see these games and without necessarily being there. And as Pete alluded to, the program's recruiting nationally and internationally. And in that case, you're going to have a lot of families and parents and alums who can't come to every game. And when we have a big game, we want everybody in the community and our family to be able to see it. So, certainly that's a goal. On the kind of I guess the piece that holds us back on it, it's there's a pretty significant expense currently associated with getting each of these games, over the top streaming. So, we have to continue to address that, and we will. I know that particularly in soccer, I think it's Andrew Wells. Is that right, Pete? Who's helped us out by doing color, and so it's great to have program alums involved, and so it's something we want to continue to grow, and we just have to figure out the resource challenge, I think, but it's also an area where over time the obstacles in the way of streaming these games have gotten smaller. The technology's gotten better. It's gotten more affordable. So I expect that to continue, and I expect us to continue to try and add to that slate.
And can you also talk about where we're at with the soccer park upgrades? Have they been completed? What can fans expect when they're allowed back to view games in person?
Yeah, I mean, amazingly, I've been here for almost a year and I haven't seen a soccer game yet. So Pete can probably give you a better sense of how it is, vis-a-vis last year. I can tell you that it looks beautiful when I come in every day and see it. First of all, the pitch looks amazing. It's heartbreaking to me that we're not playing games, and I know it is for Pete too. But the stands, the stands are in. We've got some other branding stuff that Pete and I have talked about, and particularly we've talked about with Under Armour that we're looking to do over the course, between now and when we next play a game there, that hopefully can help punch up the atmosphere a little bit. But Pete can talk about the specific infrastructure improvements that got made.
Yeah, I think the stands are tremendous. And I think once any of the alumni come over and see them, they're going to be excited about it and have a source of pride because everyone was involved with trying to get these stands put in. And it looks great. We're out there practicing, training now up on the field, and it just has a different feel to it with the stands in. Obviously, the long term, you'd like to continue to build stands, but for right now, it was a tremendous job by all involved, starting with Dr. Hrabowski and Brian, to really make sure. I know Nancy Young was involved also, and she was involved with us to really make sure, and Greg Simmons, to really make sure that we put the stands in right before the pandemic was really starting to put a halt to everything. So I'm excited about it. I think the alumni will be excited. And once they get out there, the field looks great. There's really no better facility in the Maryland area right now than Retriever Soccer Park. And it's easily right now one of the better parks in the country. So we just need to get back to playing and get back to our alumni and having that vibe and that feel. But yeah, guys are going to be excited about it, and it's something we normally, everyone likes to complain when it doesn't get done. So we really should be proud that we accomplished it and got it done, and there was a lot of money invested in it. And we're not done with it yet, but that's going to take time.
This feels like a good place in the conversation to say, I mean, there is nothing I'm more excited about than being there for a soccer game and seeing that place full. And I hope that anybody listening to this, if you're an alum, you can come back and join us, because that's getting back on that field and playing a game is going to be a real celebration. And we want as many of you as possible to be a part of it.
And still on the topic of Retriever Soccer Park, will there be any naming rights opportunities?
As far as I'm concerned, there's naming rights opportunities everywhere. It's one of the great things in college athletics to have opportunities for our supporters to really visibly show their support that way. So there absolutely will be, and it depends on. I think that runs the gamut. Greg, I know Greg Simmons is on the call, so hopefully he's not biting his nails while I talk about this. But I think it runs the gamut from the facility all the way down to anything within the facility that we could do that for. So if there's people that have a passion for retriever soccer and want to visibly show that support, we're open to anything, and we'll get as creative as we need to get.
Great, thank you. Coach, besides winning that championship, what are your other top 2 or 3 goals for the team over the next couple of years?
Well, the goal was always to continue to graduate players, do well academically. Goals really haven't changed since I've been there. Ultimately, the main goal on the field is to win a championship. I think the day that you commit to come to UMBC, then you're committing to anticipate that year you're going to try to win a championship. We're not a program that sits there and says, we'll wait to their juniors or we'll wait to their seniors. If you put on a UMBC uniform, then we're thinking championship. And every day, that's our goal. And until someone tells us that we have no chance of competing for that, then we look for the next year. So this year, it's basically the fall is going to be about just trying to get through the pandemic and making sure we're getting this young group together and make it a springboard for the spring. Get the 3 guys back from overseas and put a really young, talented team on the field in the spring. With the goal of being a championship. It's not excuses we're not going to have and saying, well, we're really young. And no, that's our goal. And obviously the other teams in America East feel the same way. But I feel very strongly about the future with this group. So when you say the next couple of years, it's about continuing to get the culture that we had here at UMBC, the culture of, winning championships, graduating players, being leaders on school at the school, and just every day running your life to knowing that once soccer's over, you're that you're going to come back and give back to the program and be involved. And I have to say, in my 30 years there, that's exactly what's happened. So I'm really proud of what we've accomplished, and I think this group will follow through. And it's just a really good, likable group of players, that's for sure.
Thank you. Brian, we know that COVID has had an impact on the department budget. What department changes, and Pete, if you want to talk about program changes, are being made to help deal with budget concerns, and how can alumni help, if at all, with this situation?
First part first. I mean, we just have to be smarter than we've ever been before about how we deploy the resources that we have. One of the things I've talked about with as soon as this happened in March, one of the first conversations I had with all our coaches was that we need to look at our scheduling and be strategic and try and get more regional with our scheduling. I think there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense, and they're not all financial, but financial is one of them. But it's missed class time, it's fan interest, because I think our students and our alum are probably more interested in seeing us play local opponents that where they have friends that go to school, or where some of their friends may have played, or where some of their high school teammates may have played. So there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense for us to play a Loyola, play a Towson, play all the schools within an hour. And this isn't just men's soccer, but across all sports. So I think that's one thing, is just trying to become more efficient and more just smarter about how we schedule. The other side of that is, every dollar we save is worth as much as the dollar we bring in. And I think we got to look at both sides of that equation. So we've really got to look at how to engage our alumni, our parents, our corporate sponsors and partners, and bring more on the revenue side. And that's certainly going to be a focus of ours moving forward. And to the question about how alumni can help, I think there's two things. I mean, one, we want to do things like this so that you feel always that you're part of this program, and it's not just, hey, we have our hand out and we want money from you, because trust me, we want money from you. But more importantly, we want you to be part of this program and feel like you're a retriever for life. And it's important that you feel like you can come back anytime and you don't have to explain who you are. You're just part of this. You're part of this community and this family. And I got a sense of that, how that already exists in men's soccer with Pete, kind of right before COVID happened. We had the opportunity to go out and see one of our men's soccer alums perform, play the guitar at a local place, and there were other soccer alums there, and I got a chance to see how tight knit this group is. And I get the sense that the folks who are part of this program want to see the legacy continue, and not just Pete's legacy, but just the championship legacy that's been built here continue. And this is a program that's been to a Final Four, that's won championships. And I talk a lot about this in the context of our basketball win a couple of years ago, but it applies just as much to the Final Four appearance. That's not meant to be a one-off. Oh, everything broke right and that happened. That's meant to be chapter one in a story. And we want to write chapter two. And for us to do that, we definitely need your support. We need you around, to coming back to games, being a part of something like this, and certainly whatever financial support you can provide as well. And all of that helps our current students and helps us maintain that legacy.
Pete, did you have anything to add to that?
No, you hit it right on the head. I'm good. Give my close. Was that all the questions?
Yes, I'm going to wrap up the questions, so I will hand it back over to you for any closing comments you'd like to make.
Well, I guess my closing comment is I do appreciate us doing this, and I think we have a very rare group of alums. They're very passionate, they're very supportive, they're very family, they're part of us. I've been fortunate to live and coach and played in this town for years. So I've seen, and I've said this a lot, I've seen a program that I was part of in the 70s, which was a national powerhouse, where the place would be packed, and we won a national championship, and there was a lot of and actually UMBC was just really starting, and they had some great teams too that competed against us, but no one would ever have thought that program wouldn't last. And so today, as I sit here, I'm an alum of a national champion, but it doesn't have an athletic program. So I always am reminded of that. Anyone who played and was involved at that back then would have never, ever anticipated this. So I say that we have a really good thing going at UMBC soccer. We have great alums. They're well respected. Okay, they come out and they support us. Some of them on here today, a lot of them had texted me today and said they'll watch it because their kids are playing or practicing tonight and they had something to do, and it's understandable. I think at UMBC, and I've been there 30 years, longer than just about anybody, the alumni of soccer has been as supportive as anybody plus. So they're here today. They're on this show, and I really like to. Right before the pandemic came, Brian was basically going out with me and meeting alums. Had no hesitation, and it's really a hesitation on going to dinner or having lunch with alums just to talk, to meet them, not ask for money. Eventually, we need their support. We need your support in any way you can. You never want to say what could happen in the future, but soccer is very important to all of us, and UMBC soccer is very important to all of us. So clearly, moving forward, I'd like for us to continue to have that relationship with Brian. He's a breath of fresh air, and not just because he's on here, and so is Greg Simmons. They're willing to sit down and talk and discuss the future and the future of soccer. So after the 2014 Final Four, there was a wave of support from the alumni, and it seemed to damper off a little bit. And obviously right now we're all worried about our health and just getting past the pandemic. But once this kind of changes and gets back to near normal, we'll be calling out and making sure that our alumni are involved and coming out to games in the spring and meeting Brian and having receptions or even going to dinner, because we really want to keep this thing going. Because 10 years from now, I want to be sitting here and continuing to talk with the coach of UMBC about the past and what we can do in the future, because we're all in this together, and we're only as good as the alumni. and our alumni are fantastic. You can't say enough about them across the board. They're very passionate and willing to help. So that's why it's important to have one of these kind of forums so that we can talk. We can talk to you, but eventually you're going to come back and talk to us and give us your opinions, and your opinion matters. So we really want you to be involved with us, and not just in giving money, but what can you do to help the UMBC soccer program or athletic program. So thanks for being on this tonight. And it's something obviously I've given my career to in UMBC soccer, and I'm really proud of where we are nationally, how we're recognized locally, where we are compared to where we were. And we want to continue to build on this and make everyone proud that they're part of UMBC soccer. Because I can tell you, when it first started out, it was a long climb for UMBC, and now we're as good as anybody, especially in this area, in this region, and we're well known nationally as a soccer, as a program. And I know I take great pride in that. Anthony takes great pride in that. Pete takes great pride in that, and all the people that are involved on this call do also. So thanks for this. Thanks for your help, Liz, and thanks Brian and Greg and everyone else involved. But we'll get everybody together, and maybe we'll have a reception, and once it breaks over here at somewhere like Liberatories, like we did that one time, and just sit down and have a little glass of Sprite and see where we go from there. Notice, Liz, I said Sprite, not wine.
Pete, thanks for being willing to do this. And I would echo all of your thoughts. And if I could make one request as we send this out, it's, if you watched this, share it with your teammates, share it on social media, send it to folks that you think will watch it, and help us get the word out. Because again, we want people to know that we're serious about this, and we want to get. I want to be there. I got to get my chance to be out there with Pete to hold a trophy once. So let's do that.
Thank you very much to both of you. Thanks everyone who's on with us tonight watching live. As Brian mentioned, we'll email this video link out so that everyone can share it widely. And we hope to see you all soon. Thanks again. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.